Greetings, good evening. I am Brother Youssef of the Joko Collective. Welcome to Joko Conversations. And tonight we're going to have, I think, a very important conversation with Brother Matsemela Odom, our comrade in the Black is Back coalition. As always, when we get started, and not in any sort of performative, manner, but really as a form of political education, right? We always like to acknowledge that we in the Joko Collective do this work in what's called the Los Angeles Basin, the unceded territories of the Tongva people, the First Nations of this region, or one of the First Nations of this region, along with the Chumash people of the Southern California coast, particularly the areas of Malibu, Ventura, and Santa Barbara. It's always important to remember, right, this United States, this territorial state that begins as 13 colonies on the East Coast, already settler colonies, that then extends itself in a continental empire of settlement. And so that should never be forgotten, though it's not language that is often used. And even part of our conversation tonight is about that language, the fact that the United States is a settler colonial society. Colonialism is a crime against humanity. The United States is an ongoing crime against humanity. So with that, I'm going to bring on our comrade, Dr. Matsemela Odom.
Hey, Uhuru.
Uhuru, welcome.
Welcome,
Dr.
welcome.
Odom, why don't you take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself? Your
Who
organizations.
who everybody? So I'm Matsemela Odom, Dr. Matsemela Odom. I am the president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. The International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement is a mass organization underneath the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. We struggle for the civil, human, democratic rights of African people. We understand that because of the assault against the Black Power movement in the 1960s and 70s, that the masses of African people were demoralized, pushed out of political life, and that it's been a violent assault, against us. Mass imprisonment, mass demoralization, mass killings of African people. So we fight in defense of those rights to bring people back into political life. We were formed in 1991. So that's the work that I lead. Remember the Black is Back Coalition organization formed 15 years ago. The chair of the Black is Back Coalition is Chairman Amaya Shatella. And the leading campaigns in both Impedum, the Uhuru movement overall, and the Black is Back Coalition is the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. So I am a member of that steering committee with the Hands Off Uhuru campaign and fighting for the defense of the Uhuru 3. As a part of that work, I have organized with the Western regional committee for the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. And this weekend, August 31st in St. Petersburg, Florida, we're holding a national rally for the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, Freedom Summer 2024. And here in San Diego, we're also holding a teach-in and potluck community with the national rally taking place in St. Petersburg, Florida. So I'm also...
Audio, excuse me, comrade, at least on my audio, when you said where the teach-in will be in San Diego, your voice glitched out. You mind repeating that?
San Diego, California. at the City Heights Annex.
City Heights Annex. Okay, great. Thank you. So you can
Oh,
pick back up. I didn't, I just
yeah,
that
yeah.
cut out.
So I want to say that I am also an educator. I'm a 20-year community college professor. I teach Black studies in the community colleges and even at the state system.
Awesome. And that's very much what we're here to talk about.
Right.
With the, the conversation titled "Black to School," right, which is a title you came up with, right? So the as we're looking at the sort of these issues of free speech, the suppression of dissent, dissent on campuses, dissent um, in the society at large, targeted repression of, I'm not even sure I can call it unpopular speech, right? But unpopular with, the power, unpopular with the state, or at least, certain sectors of the state right now. But as we're so as we're about to have this conversation, or as we're having this conversation, and we're talking about state repression, right? State repression of speech, repression of dissent. We can't leave it unremarked that we're having this conversation in August, last couple of days of August, but still August, right? Still Black August. And even the even that there should be a Black August is because of that relationship with the state and the state's repressive apparatus. So, I'm going to turn it over to you. You have any comments about, the fact that it's Black August and why that matters, that we're having this conversation now?
Yeah, I really appreciate that, underscoring that, this is the last couple of days in Black August. As educators ourselves, we're very familiar, many people are very familiar with Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have too much against Black History Month. I've seen some people like foo and things like that, but I understand that Black History Month came out of a progressive movement for
Right.
African self-determination in education, led by Carter G. Woodson. In many ways, an anti-colonial movement that he led. So I mean, I really appreciate Black History Month, but Black August is a bit different, right? Because whereas many times in Black History Month, we focus on a variety of Black achievements, especially Black achievements that challenge the dominant notions of what Africans can be. Black August is specifically a month that celebrates the resistance, and it's a movement that began inside the California prison system. At a time as a result of the crushing of the military defeat of the African Revolution. I mean, specifically, it was created in 1979 to memorialize George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson, as well as a comrade that had recently died by the name of Ari Golden. So Black August, but simultaneously there was anti-prison activity taking place around the African world and here in the United States, understanding that we need to mobilize people inside the colonial prisons and outside the colonial prisons. It's around the same time that the Uhuru movement was leading a campaign to free Desi Woods, an African woman, an African political prisoner. It was a mass mobilization that really expressed the sort of international mass character that we hadn't really seen in the Black Power movement since the 1960s. It was a moment in which the movement to free Geronimo Pratt had organized, and I know the Burning Spirit newspaper and the APSP were the first to
Mhm.
organize a committee to free Geronimo Pratt. And it was a time in which the movement to free Sundata Kohli and Asada Shakur was raging. We know that Comrade Asada was liberated from prison at that time.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
so it really is important. I mean, of course, there's the activities in the 60s, as the Watts Rebellion of August 1965, but we know going back towards 1619, when the first enslaved Africans were brought to the U.S., Nat Turner's Rebellion, and so many. Marcus Garvey was born in August. Marcus Garvey's
Yeah.
1920 International Congress was held in August. The red, black, and green flag was adopted
That's right.
in August. So August really is a month of international
Yeah, didn't
African
the Haitian
resistance.
Revolution jump off in
Yes,
August?
yes, yes,
There
yes,
you go.
yes. Haitian
Sorry about this.
Revolution.
Yeah, there's something about August.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes. Yeah. So, well, August is one of the hottest months.
Yeah.
So, if you can't stand, white folks on your butt, you really ain't gonna stand them in no August. So,
It's gonna boil over that.
it's gonna boil over in August, man. And it's been a hot August.
Yeah.
It's been a hot August. So
Yes,
that's
it
why this
has.
August, the Uhuru movement is leading Freedom Summer 2024. Going back towards Freedom Summer 1964, 1984 as well. The party led one in 1984. Yes. Some people refer to them as long hot summers.
Long hot summers, right? This is, well, the state of the climate, right? And the number that industrial capitalism is doing on the world's climate. I think we have nothing to look forward to but long hot summers and deep, extra cold winters, right? And
Right.
extreme weather events, right? Because that's the reality right now.
Right, because I talked about the mass and in mass enslavement of African people, and the truth is that Chairman Omar Shatella has noted in what he calls the colonial mode of production that colonialism actually introduced climate change. Right, there was something called the mini ice age in the 16th and 17th century, implemented by colonialism. I mean, literally the geography of the and geology in many ways, the landscape of the United States literally changed because of the mass death and dislocation and things like that. St. Louis is headquartered in St. Louis. St. Louis and St. Louis was the headquarters of something called what people call the Mississippi Mound Builder Civilizations, or Cahokia, which was a metropolis. It was a metropolis of indigenous people. However, colonialism influences a genocide. They said, 90% of an indigenous population could be wiped out by the effects of colonialism before those even see white people.
Before they even see white people. That's right.
So imagine having 100. California was like the most populous, something like well over 10 million indigenous people here, right? So imagine having 10 million people, and then Europeans come and you got 1 million people spread out, and then they say, oh, these people are nomads. These people are sparsely dispersed. No, that's not correct.
Right.
That's not correct. I mean, Cahokia literally was this long ice age, this dislocation of people, this forcing other indigenous people into other people's lands, causing conflict between those peoples, made people move. Then we can see in cities of Detroit that it only take a couple of years for the natural world to take over these buildings again. Then Europeans show up and they're like, oh, wow, this is a virgin wilderness. No, this is
right. There's nothing here. There never was anything here. Right.
It's like, no, this is colonialism. This is colonialism. So yes, it's a colonial crisis, and I think that's important because, how many Teslas? I can't stand seeing Teslas on the road. I don't know if I should say that, I
Well,
mean, why they drive so
I mean,
slow?
Tesla,
But
but
but but but the thing is that I mean, that represent the colonizers solving the climate crisis for themselves. You know what I mean?
that's right. In a way that allows them to
Uh,
maintain these same relationships, these same,
right, right.
capitalist relationships,
I mean,
colonial
to build
relationships.
those metropolis, in Europe, Northern Europe,
Yeah,
they cleared out all those forests. But
right.
now that they've made life so unlivable for Africans in Central Africa, you have mass deforestation going on, and
Hmm.
people tearing down trees so that they can turn those trees into charcoal. And
Into
all you
fuel.
got
Exactly.
exact for fuel, and you got liberals trying to ask why the people are attacking gorillas and tearing down trees as opposed
Right.
to attacking those people as opposed to the colonial force behind
Looking at
that.
the relationship that creates those conditions that makes it necessary.
Right,
The
right,
systemic.
right,
I mean, that was something that always, sort of rankled me about, this talk about, Haitian peasants and Haitian peasants practices leading to erosion. I'm thinking, well, these folks have been here for centuries now, right?
right,
But suddenly they don't know how to take care of the land anymore. Something's not, something's being left out of this story about, the problem of erosion in Haiti and probably other places, right? A system
right,
analysis, right? Other than this
right.
over determining one group of people in that system, who are responding to the conditions that have been imposed upon them.
Right, right. Which is why the conversation that we're having now, which is why the conversation that we take into the classrooms, and even the conversation that we inspire people to have to turn their street
Hmm.
corners into classrooms,
Hmm.
is so important. A comrade of ours in the Black is Back and the Uhuru movement, Alika Ngoma, has an album called Freedom in the Mix, and Alika's
Hmm.
family is from Haiti, and she sings in Creole, and she's got a song on Haitian poverty, in which she says, every time people talk about Haiti, they say the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. But she says, I don't want you to tell me Haiti's poor. I want you to tell me why Haiti is poor.
Right.
One person that I was just celebrating today as an African working class intellectual
Hmm.
is Walter Rodney. We were talking about Walter Rodney in my class, and Walter
Hmm.
Rodney's famous book is How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. But in many ways, Walter Rodney's book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, is misnamed because
Hmm.
it's this book right here. Because the truth is that How Europe Underdeveloped Africa really, when you read it, what he's really saying is how Africa developed Europe,
How it
right?
developed Europe.
like
Okay.
like how Africa developed, how the resources and theft and labor from Africa developed Europe, right? Because
Hmm.
Sherman Marshall says that Africa is not poor; it's looted.
No, it's rooted. Right.
Haiti,
It's
Paul
people are
Perfect talks.
impoverished.
Right, Haiti is not poor. Haiti has been looted.
Right.
I mean, I
And
forget
so I think about, what does that even mean, right? Haiti's the
right,
poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. All right, so what are you saying about the Dominican Republic, which is riddled with poverty also,
right,
has a ruling class? And Haiti has a wealthy little ruling class too, right? That
right,
seem to never show up in the news in any kind of way, or conversations about what's going on in Haiti. So what does that even mean? If, poor in Haiti, poor in the Dominican Republic, is there a what is
right.
that? Does that mean there's a more of a so-called middle class in the Dominican? I mean, that language becomes, it's what they call it, like self-fulfilling prophecy. You just keep saying
Right.
that. It just becomes
What
harder to
what
face
they mean
without
is
any
one
kind of explanation.
right. What they mean is one country is filled with a bunch of dissident
Mm.
Negroes who didn't follow the rules, and
And
and,
in the
and
other
that for the
country,
last and the last 220 years they've been
yeah,
punishing those people. And the other country is filled with
Punishment.
dissidents as well. But the truth is that they've been successful in convincing many of the people uh, uh,
Hmm.
not to not embrace the history. Or I even saw something recently say, oh yeah, someone say, oh yes, we got black people in Dominican Republic, but those people come from Haiti. Don't even make sense. It
No,
don't
it
even
doesn't
make
make sense,
sense.
right?
It don't
But
even make
that's,
sense.
a
So,
lot of
but
people don't even know that Haiti was the whole island for a while, right? And then the
right,
Dominican Republic is created. That the Haitian
what is
Revolution freed Spanish-speaking part of the island too, right? And
yes. Yeah. The thing is that um when Africa is winning, all these people
mhm,
who have questions about whether they're African going to want to be African again. That's
right.
why we have to just keep pushing forward towards victory,
Hmm.
because yeah. I mean, we just
Well,
finished the Olympics, and you see,
right.
and literally every country except for China won their gold medals with black people. You
I
know, that's
watch
why I
it
said
every 4 years, right? Africa does well at the Olympics, Summer Olympics every 4 years, just rarely for an African country. Not
right,
sometimes not
right.
even a Caribbean country, right?
Right.
I mean,
Everyone, well, Saint Lucia won the
all
100
these
this year.
countries, right?
Exactly.
What
Saint
Cuba,
Lucia.
Cuba would
I'm like,
ordinarily
that's
do
Africa.
well, right? So yeah, when you see the Brazilian
Right.
team out there, you're looking at it.
Africa.
Yes, I know it's everywhere, right? It's like
Yeah. When I
it's
was
like
a
an
kid,
open,
we
I
would
guess
watch.
that's what you call an open secret or whatever. It's like everybody's black.
Right.
All these people on the
Right.
podium they're all Africans.
Azerbaijan. Did you see that Azerbaijan was
I
was
did not
was black?
see the Azerbaijani. Nope, I'm not surprised though, because I saw a couple of Japanese athletes that were black. So no, I didn't see the
Yes.
Azerbaijani.
No, go. Yeah, the
You
women's
remember
3-on-3
what
basketball.
competition that was?
Women's 3-on-3 basketball.
Okay, all right. So I should be able to look that up. Women's 3-on-3 basketball. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I think all of this relates to of course, why we're here talking about
Hmm.
because part of the thing is if I watch those Olympics and I think like if we could understand, not like, oh, wow, it's great we're winning for all these people. If we can understand the wealth, then the power that was all Africa. And
Hmm.
we demanded it to be not African Americans or Black Brits or even Saint Lucians
Or right.
or Trinidadians or something like that,
Yeah.
but Africa and Africans,
Hmm.
my uncle's Bob Kersey, you know,
Hmm.
and my uncle Bobby, I mean, he got more gold medalists than most countries,
Hmm. Hmm.
and but I realized that's that they said American
Hmm.
American, when he go out there, they say the most winning American coach. I say, okay, now we American, huh? When our family was on some a sharecropping plantation in Northwest Louisiana, we wasn't American,
No.
but
So
but not at the curse.
you're not necessarily American after the fact, right?
Exactly.
Just when it is convenient, when it's necessary, to demonstrate. I've been thinking it's just something I've been thinking about just this last few days, and like, okay, I need to like sit down and write this down. But this notion of the patriotism of the colonized, and the need, right, for the colonized to demonstrate that patriotism, believe in it, deeply, that continues to give cover for the empire, right? Continues to give cover to the slave master. It's a serious kind of psychosis.
No, and we actually see that psychosis even in the case of the Uhuru 3, right?
Hmm.
Uh, uh, you know, um, first off, the charges against the Uhuru 3 are laughable.
Hmm.
The suggestion that they are um, agents of Russia or something like that. It's laughable, but it would be laughable if people weren't facing 15 years in federal
Right.
prison over this nonsense. However, yeah, you know, it's part of a long trope. But then I look at, you know, which is why I think what we're doing is so important, really directly speaking to intellectuals, but also really people that make up what some people might call the petty bourgeoisie overall.
Mm,
And I look at
mhm,
the silence. I look at the utter silence amongst the quote unquote black media in America
mhm,
around this case, and they should be ashamed. But then, as soon as the presidential election popped off, you know, one of these guys has a network he calls even the Black Star Network, and I'm like, in
mm,
the Black Star Network,
mhm,
But Chairman says, you know, people use the red, black, and green against the red, black, and green. And then they use that network of people to raise in like 1 hour, like over $10 million
mhm.
for the presidential candidate. And I said,
For
wow,
the
this
Democratic
is
candidate.
right. So this is that sort of as our sister Betty Davis refers to as the metaphysical imperialism,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
Metaphysical imperialism is what she refers to it as.
mhm,
Some people call it plantation psychosis, you
mhm.
know, but yeah, they call it Stockholm syndrome. Said, nah, it would
Yep.
happen long before Stockholm.
Yeah, it was already before they gave it. Well, that's like genocide, right? They didn't give it a name
Right.
until until it happened to them or something like that, right? But
Exactly.
you know, it had been going on, right? A
Right.
long tried and true practice, right?
Right. Right.
What's his name? Thucydides in the Peloponnesian Wars, right? Talks
Right.
about
Right.
you know the practice of just wiping people out, right? Men,
Right.
women, and
Right.
children, and those you don't kill, you sell into slavery. So it's
Right.
a long
Right.
practice and really a long tradition of conquest in the
Correct.
Western tradition. Right? The well, we're back at school now. Right? No, actually, hold on. I do want to ask you about school, but you know, I just what your last comments. Let me back up. So you've gotten no. Let try to rephrase that again. Right? This case against the Uhuru 3,
Correct.
spurious, right? Is getting no coverage in the black press beyond maybe you know some you can count on one hand.
Right. I mean, of course, I want to salute the comrades that we have in the, you know, Black radical press. You know, we talking about comrades that are within the Pacifica Network, especially
Mm-hmm,
WBAI,
mm-hmm,
KPFK, KPFA. So the Bay Area, California Bay Area, Los Angeles area, New York,
mm-hmm,
DC, the comrades over in DC. So want
mm-hmm,
to salute them. Want to salute, of course, people at Black Media, Black Liberation Media, as well as uh, uh, Black Agenda Radio
mm-hmm,
and the Black Agenda Report. Want to really salute Professor Gerald Horn
mm-hmm,
and the way he has used his voice to speak in unity. Cornel West, presidential candidate and professor who has spoken out and will be sending a public message to our rally this weekend. Professor Robin D.G. Kelly cannot miss Professor Robin D.G. Kelly, who has spoken out in defense of the Uhuru 3 and was at our last webinar that you and I
mm-hmm. Yes.
participated in. He himself recently published a book called Our History Has Always Been Contraband, looking at the attacks against uh, not simply Black studies, but really of Black education and the
Mm-hmm,
crime of African literacy and the crime of
mm,
African self determination and self definition.
Yeah.
It's an excellent book that I actually have decided to incorporate into my Black literature and introduction to Black studies classes. So those people have used their pulpit. Professor Sharice Burton Staley writes about
Hmm.
the case in her book, Black Scare, Red Scare. Um, but when we talk about the people that show up on the top 3 letter and 5 letter networks, um, and things like that, the people who have broken away from them because and started their own sort of Black petty bourgeois networks because of the racism in the top 3 letter and 5 letter networks.
Hmm.
Those
Hmm.
people still haven't um, spoken
Hmm.
out in defense of the of us, and part of that is they don't understand the political importance of the freedom of speech. The thing is, you don't have to support what I say, but to support my right to say it by
Right.
understanding that it's not even a question that if they come for us today, they're going to come for you tomorrow. They are coming for you. They are coming for you. You know,
Right.
uh,
Right.
you telling me they're gonna aim at the most radical, so they are coming at it. They are coming for you, and that is a political imperative
Hmm.
that. But I want to say the people have united. Over 150 organizations in unity with the Hands Off Uhuru uh, campaign, with the fight for anti-colonial free speech.
Hmm.
We've established new friends, deepened friendships across the board. Of course, Joko Collective, the December 12th movement, Black Alliance for Peace, groups that reach beyond the African community, such as the Center for Political Innovation, the Green Party, Jill Stein.
Hmm.
I mean, these are people who
She's been
from
quite
day one.
vocal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite vocal, quite vocal. And she's going to be at the rally this weekend, and she's going to be there at least
Hmm.
for the first week of the trial. So the number goes on and on is to the list is innumerable. How many people are in
Hmm.
support? So it should be taken that when I call out the talking heads of the Black middle class to not make mistake that for masses of Black people.
Hmm.
Be Black people, middle class or working class. And the truth is, we know that what even they even call the Black middle class, oftentimes is just the upper working class.
Hmm.
You and I both
Right.
know if you both know if we got sick and
Little
we're out for
better
2 weeks.
compensated workers, but still
Right,
nonetheless workers having every
right,
ounce of energy and innovation that they can squeeze out of people, right? To continue to line their
trust me.
pockets. I mean, they're still,
Trust me.
moving chess pieces around. So,
Trust me, because
and
every
in some
time they quote
ways, we're
unquote,
even more important, right? That metaphysical imperialism, right? And all
right,
those little subtle ways, beginning at K through 12, and then into the college systems of just reinforcing that worldview, right? I mean, not everybody's taking Black studies courses or
that's
what
right,
whatever the stereotypes of universities. They're extremely conservative places, right, and are dedicated to the maintenance of what they call their civilization, and their culture, right? So the
that's
radicals
right,
on campus are just a little cutout, really, just
right,
vocal cutout. We hope, right? But don't believe because I mean, really, as radical as colleges have supposed to have been for the last, what, 40, 50 years, this country should have been revolutionized by now. And it's only got more deeply, right wing, more deeply conservative. I mean, openly fascistic in its
right.
practices, right? They're taking the hoods off, right? The
Right,
so
right,
you know,
right. And we see it, in the attack against the defense of Palestine on campuses. But one thing
mhm.
we have to speak towards is that many of those places were the first. I want to talk about UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Columbia, uh, Yale, what's the other public university over there in New York, where the people had stood up in defense of Palestine were African students, St.
That's
Louis
right.
University, right? We have to talk about that, right? That the African
Mm-hmm.
students stood up and used their power in defense of people in Palestine for understanding them. The thing that we're talking about, that first off, the struggle was a colonial struggle, a struggle against colonialism, and secondly, that the imperative of the struggle for freedom of speech. And hats off to a lot of African students understanding to whom much is given, much
Yes.
is expected, right? They're still going to school for the purpose of answering the call
Mm-hmm.
that Walter Rodney and others had put out for them. Say, hey, it's not enough to just go to school. You got to ground it
Right.
with the people. So yes, but I mean, you got students at UCLA. I think some of them, I don't. Last time I talked to them, even their ability to graduate was up in arms,
That's right.
up in the air because of the fact that they had organized in defense of Palestine
Mm-hmm.
on campus. You know, uh, and but this this once again, this actually comes back to our conversation about the Uhuru 3, because the question about freedom of speech isn't like I said, it's also the right for me to say stuff, but also you should be fighting for the right to hear it. but
That's
but
right.
also what chairman says is if he was accused of having said Mary had a little lamb by Russia, he would not be on trial. Now, the United States government tries to say that's true. They would, but we all know, as the young people say, that's cap. That's not true. That Chairman would not be facing these trial if he had saying Mary had a little lamb. It's what he said, right? He spoke out for reparations, the charging of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
with genocide, and we know this because of the fact that this follows a long precedent. We can speak of William Patterson and the We Charge Site campaign, who suffered the
Mm-hmm.
exact same aggression against from the United States government. Claudia Jones deported by the United States government because of this as well. And the list Paul Robeson poisoned
Mm-hmm.
and driven crazy because of the same work.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why we got to salute the people, man. We've been in this fight for 2 years right now, and they expected us to crush and fold, but the work of our movement and our organizations and our coalition has not only gone on but grown in the last 2 years because of this. This is why education is important, because see, any political movement or organization has two strengths. The two strengths are, first, the people, and second, the ideology. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The people and the ideology of any movement. Because C.L.R. James has a good book called A History of Pan-African Revolt. And one thing he says in that book, it's kind of like an abbreviated version of Black Jacobins in many ways. He says that he shows that, look, even if they kill leaders, imprison leaders, the movement lives on. And that's the test of true unity with the people, true revolutionary ideas. I mean, they summoned Garvey to premature death. They assassinated Walter Rodney at the age of 38. A guy who never been involved in a single act of violence against, rightfully or wrongfully. He was a guerrilla intellectual. Aunt McCall Cabral. I mean, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. I mean, they kill all these people, but you know what? We know that our heroes are going to be victorious. Our heroes are going to be victorious. But that's why we got to control this, man.
Well, this is why they're working so hard to control the narrative, right? Because
correct.
There's this case there are folks who are being shut down for their, aside from whatever the Republican Party is trying to do, critical of supporting Ukraine in this NATO proxy war. There's been a years now of trying to shut down, ethnic studies, really across the country, right, state by state, but really across the country, right, trying to
Right.
shut down even our ability to get our story, even the most, in some ways, watered down versions, right,
Correct.
to not only our youth, but just the youth in this country.
Correct.
Also, that's and that is a very long practice, right, in the United States, controlling that narrative, right? I mean, they invented right, controlling the narrative, right, and the use of the creations of these mythologies. I mean, just
Right.
out of whole cloth, right? The mythologies of George Washington, right? Just
Right.
created out of whole cloth because they found it necessary, right, to create some kind of American national consciousness to support the plunder of the land and the peoples.
Right, right. It was Cedric Robinson who referred to that process as the creation of the Negro.
Mm-hmm.
And he says in his book Black Marxism, he talks about the way in which they wiped. Well, one thing he actually says, which I think is why Carter G. Woodson makes the same point too. Carter G. Woodson says you can't miseducate the Negro without miseducating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Cedric Robinson says, look, to distort African history, you have to distort your own history as well.
That's right.
Right. That's why there's a crisis of consciousness taking place in not just the colonized population, but the colonized population.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because as James Baldwin says, imagine going outside and the sun is out, but all the stars are in the sky. He said you would freak out. You would freak out. He said, well, that's what white folks are going through. 1963.
Mm-hmm.
He said, because Africans been forced to function as fixed stars in the sky of them. And now that we're moving out of place, the world is out of order for them. So Cedric Robinson says distort our history to distort their own history to distort our history as well.
Mm-hmm.
So to produce they produce Negroes so that they can create white people as well. But this is why I think this is important, because he talks about getting rid of that tradition and sort of the long history of African influence on the world. And he says, in its stead was the black slave, a consequence masqueraded as an anthropology and a history. And I even ask people, I say, why you say anthropology and history? And people get real deep. Anthropology is this, sort of social, the study of culture and history and blah, blah. I said, but why specific those two words? I said, because those are academic disciplines, right? We know that the church played a role in the early period, but what he letting us know is that higher education, enlightenment, CLR James said the problem of Toussaint Louverture was the problem of light, not dark. So it wasn't dark Africa. It was European enlightenment that made him get on the ships.
Exactly.
He read all that French literature. He could throw it back at them. He thought he was a general, their most accomplished general. The only other general as accomplished as him,
right? The Republican French Army.
The only other general as accomplished as him was black too. Alexander Dumas' grandfather. So actually go and peep that movie, Napoleon. They show him in there, right? Okay. They don't show why he went away. He was in the movie. They don't really explicitly say it, but that's him. Then he go away. Well, the reason he went away is because they tried to get him to invade Haiti. Alexander Dumas' grandfather, who was a French general who led all them campaigns in Northern Africa. They tried to send him over to Haiti. He said no, and they threw him in jail. Right. So Toussaint, most accomplished general. got on that ship. They're going to treat me like a dignitary, and they treated him like an African.
Okay.
They tossed him in the Alps, and he
Remind
literally
him
froze to death.
what the relationships are, who's in
Right.
charge.
So it ain't darkness. I tell my students, don't feel ashamed that you ain't got no education. That means you ain't got no miseducation.
You ain't got no miseducation, right? Because that that's a fine line, right? I mean, I give thanks that I survived, and at the same time hope that I actually have survived, right? Because it's insidious too, right?
Well, we do that through the process of grounding, the process of becoming what Louisa Kinshasa calls an African working class intellectual. What Amilcar Cabral calls being a class suicide. We stay grounded with the people. We're not just teaching, we learning.
Right.
So we teaching and learning at the same time from the people.
That's right. That's
right.
And that's who's coming into the classroom are depending on where one teaches. But if you're teaching in a state school, teaching in a public school, even if it's the UC system, you're more likely. You're definitely in the I'm in California, right? So in the Cal State system, certainly the community colleges, that's who's coming in. It's the working class, right? There are a few students, might be from more affluent families who, like I can save some money, taking some classes here. But it's it's working class people coming in to get their AAs or, certifications or prepare to transfer to one of the state schools. But it's working class, right? And, the task is to not have them tricked into committing the wrong kind of class suicide, right? Or become class traitors, right, to the working class.
That's correct.
Go ahead and join. So I'm at some point in the semester I'm very explicit with the students. Why are you here? What is the point of education? And there's all the stuff about self-development and becoming a better person and knowing yourself and all that. And and all of that is very true, right? And that self-development is important. But don't forget, what you're really supposed to be learning is how to be the management class for the owners of the society, right? For the owners.
That's correct.
That's who you. That's and then my plan is to make sure you don't become that, right? That, or at least that if you're going to do that, you make a conscious choice, right? That
right.
Right.
Louisa Kinshasa sent a great article that everyone should go to theburningspirit.com and find. It's called "The Role of African Intellectuals in the World." I have my introduction to Black Studies students read it. He says that the role of intellectuals in any given society, and I'm talking about since the first person created fire, is to solve the problems of production in any given society. But colonialism changes that, because the question for the colonizers, whether you're going to solve the problems of society for the colonizer or for the colonized, right? So being a student isn't a social class. But higher education wants to turn black working class students into servants of colonial capitalism, to transform them into, like you said, traders against the African working class, and to solve the problems for the colonized, the colonizer. And there's tons of things, that we talked about. And there's tons of ways they rationalize it, or they, get people roped in. And stuff like that.
Various mentorships and internships. I mean, that's part of that pathway, right? Into those elite institutions and policy institutions and so they're paying attention. Right? They're always looking for the best and brightest to turn, so to speak.
That's correct. And sometimes they're not even looking for the brightest. They're just looking for the wicked. No, let's be clear. I mean, our best and brightest was Walter Rodney. I mean, that guy was. I mean, he was the head of every single class he was in. The guy had his PhD by age 24. I think Robin Kelly was right behind him. I don't think Robin Kelly was older than 25 when he got his PhD, and was under 30 when he received full tenure ship at the University of Michigan. full professorship, not just like,
Mhm.
what they call a social professor. He became full professor before he
Right.
was even
No,
30 years old.
full professor.
You know,
Yeah.
so here we talking about remarkable people. Even boys with all his contradictions. Once again, the boys' contradictions ain't of darkness, it's of light. Enlightenment. It's
Yeah, yeah, I feel you.
him going out there to Germany and coming back with that pointy mustache, and that pointy beard and the scarves. That's. I mean, he could dress though. He could dress. The brother could dress, but his
But
contract.
yeah,
That was
no, I
his
know
contract.
right.
It was not because he was too black or something like that. So, but see, in my teaching, that's what I do. I try. I let this, and when I tell people, it kind of it's there right in front of them, but I realize the light bulb comes on and say, you got to understand, it's because of your, it's because of your brilliance that you suffered
Mhm,
colonization.
mhm,
Because of your brilliance that you suffered
mhm.
colonization, not
Yeah.
because of the lack of. Because I hear people say, "Well, we got this and we got that," and I'm not even convinced they're more united than us, the colonizer. I think they just got power, right? We
Yeah,
have
no.
to, I mean, in the sense of like, I heard people say they look out for each other or they're cunning and all this other stuff. They got power.
That's part of the okey doke, right? That people, that's part of the propaganda because besides their own like internal class contradictions, I mean, just even in the ruling sectors, right? I mean, that's
Right.
there are contradictions and competitions, and for hegemony, right? Over how things are going to be run, how the colony is going to be run, and stuff, and so no, they're not as unified as. And especially now, right? I can't remember. Well, yeah, I think I was too young to remember, right? The last time there was, this much crisis in the system,
Right.
and
Right.
when
Right.
it's in some ways most dangerous and most vulnerable at the same time.
Right. I think, but I think that's it. At every moment of colonial crisis has been a moment of opportunity for the colonized. I think the difference is that this also explains the attack against Uhuru 3, right?
Hmm.
There's a similar crisis in the United States that took place in the 1850s that produced the Civil War, the disunity in
Hmm.
the ruling class. What they called American Revolution was really a division in the ruling class, a crisis
Right,
amongst the ruling class.
right.
A War of 1812, World War One, World War Two. All of these were periods that were either concurrent to or followed by intense anti-colonial activity. I think the thing that makes from the 1860s to now is that the uprising of African workers, enslaved African workers, and colonial crisis produced the Civil War, and even produced
Hmm.
the quote unquote victory of the Union in the Civil War. Something like 250,000 Africans fought in that war and things like
Hmm.
that. But the difference is in 1865 there was not a consolidated party, revolutionary party, and contingency of the African working class. Here where we need to go, right? So instead, there was this unity between Africans and the radical Republicans. And at the moment that the most significant ones died and the rest of the Republican Party abandoned and sold out African people, that was on. Now, some people still to return to the Reconstruction period, but the truth is that Garvey, Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party, Chairman Omar Teller all show us that what is needed is a vanguard party of the African working class, and we do have a vanguard now underneath the leadership of Chairman Omar Teller to point our way forward and to say, look, this is the way. So colonialism is in crisis, and this crisis is deepening. Is
Yeah.
deepening. I mean, the proposal of a black president twice in 16 years. Regardless, and I know people going crazy. Oh, her father and all this, her mother and
Whatever,
his all this other
whatever.
stuff. Whatever, bro. That's the thing is, whether you know it, whether you see her as black, they see her as black. And the thing is, the election, this represents the crisis of colonialism, right? And they working fiercely to maintain their system. You know, they and want to fight to maintain their system. That's why this attack is. If you look at when the attack came against the Uhuru movement in 2022, it's right at the time that Africa was rejecting NATO and the United States' attempt to rally Africa in support of the war they were waging in the Ukraine.
Right.
And the most visible leader, chairman at that time. Chairman's Oxford speech been viewed tens of millions of times in Nigeria alone. So I remember when it came out, everyone was asking, "Where's he from?" People had sending me, "Where's this guy from? His last name is from Ethiopia, but his first name is from West Africa. Where is he from? His middle name is from South Africa." I said, "Well, he's from Africa. That's because his name, because he's from Africa,
Right.
But yeah, no, this is a very, very important thing. But see, I want to take it back to the Uhuru 3 case, because when government attacks, they also identify leadership. Right? Government attacks identified leadership. Right? The attack against the Black Panther Party identified the Black Panther Party as the leadership of the African Revolution at the time. Attack against Marcus Garvey, attack against Dr. King, attack against Malcolm X identifies the leadership of that movement.
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, the system is in crisis, but the question is, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do, regardless of the outcome of this election? Whoever wins the election, the bourgeoisie will still be in charge, right? The empire will still be an empire. So, not expecting anybody to be saving anything from either one of those parties, even though it's a very real struggle. I think, between the two ruling, we should say within the duopoly, and how livable this country may be and how much democratic space there may be, and whether there will be trials or they'll just throw people, in jail, or at least, or put up the pretense, right? Because the pretense is important, right? The pretense is very important to their public face, right? The performance of these democratic practices, right? However shallow they may be, it matters that they're there, right? But beyond all that, right? We're coming up on an hour, so I want to ask you, what's next, right? Because the
what's
trial
next? That's excellent. Excellent question.
Right?
Yeah. So first off, one thing I wanted to do is make a call for students, teachers, intellectuals, community people to hold teach-ins over the next month around the question of the Uhuru 3. Here in San Diego, we're holding a teach-in and a potluck at it's called the City Heights Annex, Heights Performance Annex, which is on near the intersection of Fairmont Avenue and University Avenue in the mid-city section of San Diego, starting at 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So this will be concurrent with the rally that's taking place in St. Petersburg, Florida. As well, we're calling for people to tune into the Burning Spear TV YouTube page daily for the month of September. View the live analysis, the live broadcast that's going to be taking place covering the trial. What's next is, of course, like I said, the August 31st rally that's taking place in St. Petersburg, Florida. You can find that out at handsoffuhuru.org. We have the trial throughout the month of September, and we are and important to know, no matter which way the struggle still is going on, because the slogan is for us to build the anti-colonial free speech movement, and it's not stopping with
Right.
this trial. Right, we need anti-colonial free speech, because it's not just free speech to say whatever crazy stuff you can say. Man, I'm telling you, I watch media all the time, where it says, I say, man, that was crazy. Like, I can't believe I just saw what I saw on TV, or on a movie. And so it's not about saying stuff.
Lie all the time. They'll say anything. And people,
right.
So it's unpopular speech. I mean, they're very targeted, right? And whose speech they're limiting, whose expression is getting limited, what becomes controversial.
That's correct.
Very clear, right? So
that's correct. That's correct. That's why we saying we got to push for anti-colonial free speech. And the thing about anti-colonial free speech is that what even sets the sort of parameters of its virility is the system. Chairman Omar Teller says, and when he said it to me, I sort of, it blew my mind. I said, that's it. He says, it's not the colonized that determines the rules of engagement. It's the colonizer that determines the rules of engagement. That goes with ideas of violence, nonviolence, whatever it is. Freedom of speech. It's the colonizer. Who said. I mean, if a person can go and make a career lobbying for the country of Israel. The settler state of Israel, with no repercussion, never having to file FARA or anything like this nonsense. Conferences. How many conferences people get invited to, and research scholarships and things like that to go over to Israel or something like that. Never having to file.
Is that complicity, right, of the academic institutions and the various foundations?
Right. So, but
these experts,
right. But I'm supposed to believe that for $7,000 and two conferences, that no. So yeah. So that's what's next. What's next is the continuation of the struggle. Is the continuing unity of the people with the struggle, and that's what we can do as the people. We can take these questions into our classrooms. Because one thing I've noticed by integrating many of the stuff into my course material in a variety of different ways, we read the book The Verdict Is In, Reparations Now, and I do have a copy of it floating around here. So I will actually, let me just grab it right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I do use The Verdict Is In, Reparations Now, an account of the 1982 Tribunal on Reparations to African people. I use this in my lectures, and we read it. And what you find out is that the mass is the people unite with what they hear. There's not any pushback, and in many ways, I don't know. Maybe you found the same thing, that they've made.
Yeah. No,
it's not pushback at all. No. It's not pushback, even from
the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party, or at least here's a text to read, and ain't nobody pushing back on it, right? All this, whatever their ethnic background, it all makes perfect sense to them.
Even my conservative students.
Exactly.
Right.
It also
even my conservative students. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's what they don't want. That's what they don't. The people in power, the status quo, the sort of hegemony doesn't want is that
Why it's so
is that because
important
like I
to
said,
control these ideas.
there is a crisis taking place of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
and conscience amongst
Mm-hmm.
the ruling elements of the society, and it's reflected in that. Like I said, I got a student who
Yeah.
said he's like a finance major or something like that, a finance major or something. He says all of his electives are basically Black Studies classes. White kid, he
Interesting.
take all his electives are Black Studies, and he's
Mm-hmm.
not even he's not interested in switching or anything, but all his electives are Black Studies classes.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's interesting.
it's
Yeah.
like and so I remember when they made Black Studies a mandate recently. I thought there was going to be pushback. I'm not so I'm not suggesting that there is not sort of a concerted effort, especially by the ruling class and sort of
Mm-hmm.
right and even sort of liberal elements of the state to sort of contain and push back our advances and the campuses where it's
And
taking
there
place. But
is, right?
what I'm saying is that when we get to the people, when we take
Yeah.
this message to the people unite with us.
Yes. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So the teach-in on Saturday.
Yes.
You've created a curriculum for it.
Yes.
Great. So that's a curriculum you'll be able to share.
Yes. If you go ahead and email me at info at impedum.org, info@impedum.org, I will share the curriculum with you there, and even the outline for you to create your own curriculum. We have talking points, we have images, we have slide presentations. One we have that has been very successful is what's really happening in Palestine and why it matters to Black
Mm-hmm.
America. I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
not Black America, but the Black communities in the U.S. There's another one we do, which is from Freedom Summer to Black August. That'll be the title of the
Mm-hmm.
one this week, underscoring the historic Freedom Summers, the way through which the
Right.
Uhuru movement led its own Freedom Summer in the 1980s, and the importance of this Freedom Summer right now. So yes, and the resource list has multiple videos that you can use, such as
Okay. Excellent.
their teach-ins and all sorts of amazing stuff. So info@impedum.org, and in the subject,
inpdum.org.
yeah, correct.
Great. I just put it in the chat.
And it'll also be posted on the Hands Off Uhuru website.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm wishing you, a strong teach-in on Saturday.
Right
I
on.
thought I was coming down, and I was planning on coming down until my granddaughter called me to say, "But Grandpa, I'm having a birthday dinner on Saturday." So,
Hey,
so I'm like,
hey,
okay,
you
you ain't even gotta. I
that's
ain't even
the
gonna
other
try.
thing. That's the other thing about August is how many
Well,
birthdays we got in August.
well, hers is September. It's
That's
actually September the 1st. I think that's Sunday, either that
oh,
Sunday or
okay.
Monday. But anyway, her party is on the
No.
31st.
My father's is September the 2nd. So
Okay.
I got the same call. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
my cousins from Compton, so they love to party. I mean,
yeah.
they party like old school party. They talking about
Yeah.
for my dad. They holding a 3-day birthday. My dad don't even party
Oh,
like that. I mean,
that's old school.
and
Yeah.
like so they on Saturday they say no, you got to come both days because Saturday is going to be Mexican food, and then on
Okay.
Sunday going to be barbecue. So
Okay. Then you got
after
Sunday. Okay.
after the teaching, I got to drive the kids up to Escondido,
Okay.
and
That's good.
then
You got that second day. That's cool.
yes.
That's cool.
So I totally understand it. I totally understand. We're talking about a month long of events.
But yeah,
My
exactly.
partner
But,
is we're going to be headed. My partner is headed out to who is in Wazy Odom, the head of the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, is headed out to St. Pete, and then when she comes back from St. Pete, I'll be headed out to St. Pete for the second half of the trial. So
right
I'll be
on.
out there. in St.
Right on.
Petersburg. I was just out there for the Black is Back conference 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And yeah, so hopefully we'll see you all out there. Go to handsoffuhuru.org. That I will attend the trial. It's a big green button on the homepage. And let them know when you can come out there, because this is an important historic trial that really determines the future of the freedom of speech.
And you're right, it's not getting coverage, right? It's not. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think see it getting coverage in the mainstream white press, really. It's just,
no. It's been whiteballed, whitelisted. Because what happened was originally, if you notice, a lot of them did cover it, but they covered it when they thought they had a slam dunk. When they realized it wasn't a slam dunk, they whitelisted it. So
there, again, that issue of the issue of free speech, right? And really, I mean, you can say whatever you want, right? Or you can write whatever you want, but can you get it to your audience, right? Can you get it to the people, right? Can you and en masse, right? Can you reach a critical mass of folks? I mean, you want, even a small audience, right? A small quality audience who have the wherewithal, right, to get the word out. It's an essay I haven't taught in a really long time now. But I'm reminded of this essay written by the German playwright Bertolt Brecht. What is it? Writing the Truth: 5 Difficulties. And one of those difficulties, as he describes it, is, I think, if I remember it correctly, without getting up to search for the book, because I have no idea where it is right now. It's probably at work anyway. Having either the cunning or the cleverness to know in whose hands it's best to get that truth to spread it, right? So who's going to be your most effective audience, right? And who will take that word out? It's really, it's a sharp little essay, right?
Wow, I'm looking at it right here. I'm going to use this in my work. He says, the courage to write the truth is number 1.
There you go.
The keenness to recognize the truth.
The
skill to manipulate the truth as a weapon, because as we know, history is a weapon, right?
That's
the
right.
Judgment to select those in whose hands the truth will be effective.
There it is.
And the cunning to spread the truth among the many. Dang, this some good stuff right here.
This is some good stuff, right?
This some good stuff. And you know what? That's why I really credit African internationalism. I credit people like Rodney and C.L.R. James and Chairman to let me know, because originally, I'm telling you, the one which I thought education was I ain't gonna learn no European stuff. Like I came to college, I don't know what the Peloponnesian Wars is. You mentioned it earlier. I was just like, a Pyrrhic victory. I didn't know none of that stuff. I had to do research on that stuff.
What are the sources for these little phrases and stuff?
Exactly. I didn't know any of that stuff, man. I didn't know any of that stuff, because they said you either if you study U.S. history and history department to study outside the U.S. So, but the choice was either world history or European history. So I always studied. So I studied world and U.S. I didn't study Europe. So it was just basic stuff. But once I started to read
Western tradition,
right? But once I started to read from the anti-colonial perspective and realize, wait, it's a whole other history out there that they don't want you to see.
That they don't want you to know.
And it's a history of struggle, of internationalism, of working class uprisings.
That stuff has been so suppressed. People don't. If you just mentioned the Revolution of 1848, ain't nobody gonna know what you're talking about. Even though it's critical to the development of these modern states, right? And it might have been happening in the imperial core, but it was important, right? It was an important progressive move, even if it was like a frustrated revolution, and ain't nobody knowing about that.
And when you find out what was the base of that revolution in 1848, even though they didn't understand it, right? In Europe, the rumblings were happening there because there was rumblings.
When you're enjoying, what is that musical? When you're enjoying Les Miserables and you don't really know what's happening when they're at the barricades and shit with the red
Right.
flags. I mean, it's like,
Right.
do you
Right.
understand what's
Right.
happening here, right? And what's behind all
Right.
of the stuff
Right.
that you're not supposed to, right? It's
Right.
just a movement,
James Baldwin said, in France, the Algerians are Les Miserables.
There you go.
So
Did you see that film produced by Wesley Snipes, A Great and Mighty Walk, about John Henry Clark?
yes,
You remember that part where he says, he goes to Arthur Schomburg and it's like, teach me about my people. And Schomburg says, right, before you learn about your people, you need to learn about them people, right? So learn this Western tradition thing, right?
yes,
So he did that
yes,
first, right? And of course, my
yes,
grounding in it is just a result of, growing up in colonial schools and being a book nerd, right?
right,
But I
right.
mean,
No.
they teach the history
Aimé
of the world in
Césaire,
Europe, right?
in Discourse on Colonialism, Aimé Césaire says that I learned the French language so I could use the French language as a grenade and throw it back at the French.
Don't you love that?
So
that's the next movement, right?
Exactly. He said I learned their language so I could use their language as a weapon against them.
There we go. So there are certain tools of the master that you can use against the master.
Right, because one thing is that we can hop on the phone and talk to people in South Africa and Kenya and the UK, even though we all come from people spread across the African continent, because these colonizers taught us their language, and we gonna turn this against them. And that's our role. That's the role of us as African class intellectuals.
That's it. So let me tell you one more thing about that that Bertolt Brecht essay. It's just a good essay. Besides its content, which is fire, it's also just the way it's structured is a really good way to teach an essay, because he gives that you read it, right? That summary of the 5 difficulties at the beginning. Then he breaks down each one in detail. Then he summarizes it again at the end. So it's just a nice little model for, look, this is a way, the sort of thing you're trying to achieve in your essay. But now I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking as a composition teacher and whatnot. So
no, that's all right.
Works on a couple of levels though, right? The content is deep,
right,
and like critical, right?
Right.
I'm trying to remember if it's in that essay that he says something like, you're condemning fascism, or what's the point of condemning fascism if you aren't going to condemn capitalism? That's like condemning the cubs without condemning, the she-wolf that bears them, something to that effect. But I might be mixing up. It might be another writing, where he says something like that. But anyway, it's
this one. It's wow. This is very. You got to sit. This is chairman.
I mean, you found it, right? It must be online somewhere, because
it is. It is.
Writing Truth, 5 difficulties. So you found it. Go ahead and email it to him. Courtesy of the Joko Collective.
All right,
and I'm like, I've been thinking about. I gotta reincorporate that into my. I don't teach that class anymore, right? They got rid of that class after the the AB 750, I think, law.
Right.
And that was one of the fundamentals classes. So I haven't taught it since then, but I've been thinking about reincorporating some of that stuff into, my first year composition class.
So I found the quote. He says, "Those who are against fascism without being against capitalism, who lament over the barbarism that comes out of barbarism, are like people who wish to eat their veal without slaughtering the calf. They are willing to eat the calf, but they dislike the sight of blood." And this is very important. Now, once again, man, this speaks towards what we're talking about right now, because you got people who want to get rid of fascism, but by fascism, what they really mean is just the sort of overt belligerence of the colonial state. They don't want to get rid of colonialism overall.
Home, right?
Exactly. Yankee Doodle has come home. They don't want Yankee Doodle coming home. They don't want the chickens coming home to roost. They want it over there.
That's for the Indians on the frontier. That's for these uprisings of enslaved people. That's not for the citizens. that's
Right,
not that's
right,
not for the
right,
pioneers. What are you talking about,
right.
right? No. But yeah, right. I mean, I get it, right? What they've been doing to the rest of the world, to the rest of us on the regular, just really,
Right.
it just, it reaches the settler population, right, in a particular type of
That's
way,
right. That's right.
right, or et cetera, right,
Right.
or what they've been doing to the working classes, right? They start doing to the middle classes too, and
Right,
stuff like
right,
that.
right, right. And then but see, that's where the struggle comes in, because that was the primary struggle. There's another great book by Chairman you could look up and find a PDF online. It's called The Dialectics of Black Revolution,
Hmm.
and in it he outlines the historical struggle, the class struggle, even within the African community during the civil rights movement. Right. See, the thing is, African people are colonized, but not all people want to resolve that conflict with colonialism the same
Right,
way.
right.
You got some people who just want better jobs, better positions. They want the state off their butt. They want their
That's
loans
all.
forgiven.
Hmm.
They want subsidies so they can get green vehicles as well. But then you got other people who want a complete overturning of this sort of the oppress relationship between oppressor nations and oppressed nations.
Right.
And the poor and working class coming to power. So that's part of that historical struggle we're a part of. That's why we're doing this during
Yeah.
Black August.
Yes. It
Right on.
is. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Right on. Indeed. So, well, we've been at it for like an hour and 20 minutes. Almost
Right.
an hour and 22 minutes. But it's good. It's just,
Right.
and it's important to be having these types of conversations too. And again, especially what school is. Well, it has started, right? We just finished week one. Ordinarily, Santa Monica College is, for a semester system is, starts fairly late. I know some schools are going to be starting next week, I think, if they haven't already.
Oh wow.
Quarter system anyway. Quarter system schools won't start
Oh yeah,
until
quarter system schools don't even start till almost
right.
October.
Exactly, right. So one more thing before we go, right? Because that's happening, right? Campuses are reopening, right? What is
Right.
it? The college football season has started. Students are
Right.
going to be back on campuses. So one of the things I'm looking for, right, and this didn't happen at the community college I'm at last spring. Although I think students who are activists were engaged on other campuses, right, the bigger campuses, like going over to
Mm-hmm.
UCLA and participating. But I'm wondering, when, not if, but when these encampments are going to, reemerge. And the things happening at those campuses, teach-ins are some of the things happening
Right.
those
Well,
encampments, and around Palestine, but all they're anti-colonial, right? They're an internationalist. So I'm wondering, when are they going to be back? What, especially with the election approaching, what's the response going to be? The aggressive genocide has not ceased, right? And it's actually only
right.
intensified. And now attacks in the
Right.
West Bank by the Israeli settler state is attacking folks in the West Bank now.
Of which there's no Hamas in the West Bank. So that dispels
right?
so that dispels that lie.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just
So,
wondering, have you heard anything or
yeah. I want to give a shout out to Students for Justice in Palestine,
okay,
especially Students for Justice in Palestine, UCLA. One thing that was interesting to me is that, see, the quarter system was really a way to, many people argue, to limit the student activism that you saw from the 1960s up through the anti-apartheid movement. Because, see, in the 1960s, some of the semesters were as long as 18 weeks.
right.
And when you talk about Freedom Summer, from what I read in the archives, I went to the archives over at UCLA and read a lot of oral histories. And what happened was that classes would send their entire class down south for 2 months. You got a 16-week class, you use the first 4 weeks to train kids. You send
Mm-hmm.
them out there. You send them out down south for 8 months, and then you bring them back and sum it all up and have them do presentations.
Yeah.
But what happened was we saw uh, the way through which, beginning with here, Governor Reagan and President Nixon,
Yep.
said we're going to attack the California colleges because it's been a basis of student organizing.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
one way you see that is the quarter system. I mean, that quarter system brutal. They say it's 10 weeks
Well, this is
long, but it's
brutal.
really
It is brutal.
but
I
but
do not
but
like it.
but but
I actually
exactly.
avoid the quarter system.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and so because they say it's 10 weeks, but it's
It's
really
10 weeks,
it's really 8 weeks because you figure
but
that
it's
first
really
week is
8 weeks.
introduction. The first week is introduction, and last week is summing things up. You only got two. You got only. But what
You got
happens
eight
is
weeks.
it's 3 quarters. So they
Yeah,
start late, but they end late. So
but they end late.
this spring, the UCs were a bastion for continued activity, which was advantageous for their struggle because while
Mm-hmm.
a lot of students were going home in the beginning of May, the UC students were on campus until the middle of June,
Till the
which
middle of
allowed
June,
for
exactly.
so the students at UCLA that we've been in contact with, and they've signed on with Unity of the Hands Off Uhuru movement. So we really want to support them. They
Mm-hmm.
use the summer as a time to for their own political education. So they've continued the process of
Right.
political education as this is, and they started their own. I think they call it the People's University that they've
Mm-hmm.
been doing. SJP UCLA throughout the
Right.
whole summer have been doing their own anti-colonial People's University studying because once again understanding that ideology is central to the victory of any revolutionary struggle. And it also sort of struggles like this show you who your friends are. You might lose some other friends, but you gain new
But
friends.
you gain,
And
that's right, truer friends, deeper, right.
right. So
You know,
I just really want to salute. So I do see it as uh, growing.
yeah.
And then there's institutional legacies. We can talk about this more, but I can talk about some of my research because one thing that I think some of the universities imagine is long game. They say, okay, these students aren't going to be here for 4 years, so we can just wait them out. But I think that's where people like us come in to say, hey,
Yeah.
we were part of this as well. So I started to tell the people at UCLA about something they had called Nelson Mandela Plaza, which was an
Mm-hmm.
encampment in the night. Actually, they call it Nelson Mandela City in the 1980s.
In the
Berkeley
80s,
called it
yes.
Biko Plaza,
Biko
and
Plaza, yes.
and,
I spent
and
nights
going
at
back to
Biko Plaza during that time. Yes.
right, and in the 1960s at UCLA, Bernard Magubani, the great
Mm-hmm.
sociologist,
Mm-hmm.
Martin Legasic, and others had their own encampments then as well.
Yeah.
And this was on the heels of similar activities done at the same places by civil rights students the semester before. So
Right.
there's a long legacy, and it's our ability as intellectuals to weave that story so
Yeah.
that people can see the forest, not just the trees in front of
Not
them.
just the trees. And it is so important to weave that story and to do it in a way that is going to, how should I say, give the students the tools, right? The tools they're going to need to dismantle this monstrosity, rather than those other tools
Right,
that they're expected to get to continue greasing its gears, right?
right, right on.
This was a wonderful conversation, right? I think we
Right,
covered a lot, and I'm looking forward to getting the teach-in material and doing our part and seeing um, what we do in the classroom, but then what also happens outside of the classroom, right? And
That's
that that sense of um, of responsibility, right?
that's it.
Beyond one's self, one's professional and personal development, right? And
That's
so
it.
really
That's it.
pushing against, that value of the university. Um, so we're gonna have you back sooner than later.
Right on.
We'll have
Right
you
on.
back for another conversation.
Right on.
We say, all power to and full exoneration to the Uhuru Three. This is a political attack. There's been a whole bunch of talk about lawfare in this, presidential contest. These are the real uses of lawfare, right?
Right.
Using the law to dismantle or in some way cripple revolutionary movements in this country,
Right.
wherever they're coming from, right? But yeah, pushing back against the system, and indeed, the entire system is still
Right.
colonialism and global empire. I mean, that is still it.
Correct.
And they are
Correct.
clinging, but they're losing that, and they are clinging to it. So we continue to fight back and prepare working class intellectuals.
That's correct.
The ideas in people's heads, they are not just ideas in people's heads.
Right.
They become embodied in people's practices, often unconsciously, right? and
Right.
and in many ways, that's what power wants, these practices to be unconscious. It just seems like nature.
Right.
This is just the way things are and will always be, and the way they're supposed to go, instead of recognizing that these are decisions that people are making to funnel us in a particular way that continues to create just unimaginable amounts of plunder for
Okay.
such
Right.
the truest of true minorities on
Right.
this planet, such a small group of people, of families that control everything, but not
That's
but they
correct.
control. And this is something of freshman year, might have been sophomore year, that a teacher made clear to me. I love this distinction, so I'm gonna honor her by calling her name, Carla Schick. Very important to my early political education. Um, the people have the power because the people can actually
Mm-hmm.
change. They have control. So we got to take that power and turn it into control.
Mm.
And that was
That's it.
very illuminating for me. It was like, okay, because what the thing it did was it made me, in that moment, I stopped feeling powerless
Right on.
and started thinking about that distinction, right? What power can do and what control has to do, so that we don't enact our power. Right? So
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Somebody else was talking about recently about, what was he call it, choice versus uh but yeah, he was saying the difference between like options versus choice or something like that. It was something very similar where he's saying, yeah, they'll let you in the voting box and let you choose from A or B. Uh,
right,
uh, 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 but but but
right,
but in that situation, the act of voting becomes an extension of your powerless,
right,
of your lack of control. You know,
right.
of lack of control. So right on. I really appreciate this. You know, like you said, I really do, and it's just such a natural conversation for us to have.
There it
But
is.
I know we're not just having it with ourselves; we're having it with the people. So that's what
Yes,
makes
we
it
are.
really
Yes, we are.
addictive.
So, like it says in the chat, Vanguard up, victory to
Uhuru,
the
Vanguard
Uhuru.
up.
And
Uhuru,
we will see
Uhuru.
you next time on Joko, which we expect to be next Thursday. And by then, the trial will have started. So maybe next Thursday, we can get an update on the trial for our Joko conversation. So,
Yes,
folks,
yes.
if you're in YouTube land, if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Please like this broadcast or this webcast. Please share it. If you're on Facebook,
Uhuru.
please like it, love it, do whatever is the equivalent. We really appreciate you being here with us. We are trying to make our small contribution to this major work, but we know every little bit matters. Every little bit helps. Every little bit is really, really important. So, with
Right
that,
on.
say as comrade, fellow working class intellectual, Dr. Jared Ball likes to
Mm.
say, quoting Fred Hampton, peace, if you're willing to fight for it. And we also say Uhuru,
Uhuru. I like that. Peace if you're willing to fight for it. Uhuru.
right?
Uhuru.